Dorothy with Your Makeup Expert. I am so excited to bring you this month's beauty. As you know, we are honoring and highlighting women that cultivate beauty from the inside out. They give back to their community. They just embody what beauty truly is and cultivate it in everything they do. So I want to introduce you. This month's YME Beauty is a very good friend of mine. She is near and dear to my heart. Her name is Elise Hurd. Hello, Elise.
Hi, Dorothy. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I got a couple hours of sleep, so for Mama 6, you know that's doing great.
Awesome. Well, I have known Elise for a really long time, and we have been friends for a good length of time. But I just wanted to introduce you guys to her and let her tell you a little bit about herself. She's got a very interesting background and an even more interesting life right now.
Sure thing. Well, I love that you're having these conversations about beauty, and I have kind of an interesting introduction into the beauty industry. And that is when I was 13 years old, I was approached by a modeling agent, and I was asked to become a professional model. And my career kind of took off, and it was peaking by the time I was 18 years old. I had clients like JCPenney's and Neiman Marcus, and I traveled to Paris with Visible Changes. So I was doing a lot of modeling, but at that time I found out I was pregnant, and I chose an abortion for my child and then continued in a very self-focused, self-destructive lifestyle. And those two things tend to go together. So then when I was 19, I found out I was pregnant again, and I scheduled an abortion again. But this time, God stepped in some pretty significant ways and convinced me that he wanted that baby to live, and so I chose to keep her. And so then I entered into 3.5 years of being a single mom. And during that time is when I started doing hair and makeup professionally. So I had been in front of the camera, and now I flipped around to the back side of the camera. And at the same time that I was doing hair and makeup, I started blogging and writing about the story that God had given me and what he was teaching me. And because of that blogging, that opened up some writing and some speaking opportunities. And I, at this point, have been published in a couple of different books. One of the devotionals I was published in was actually about what is the evidence of real beauty? What does that look like? And last year I was published in a devotional Bible for women by the Encourage team. And now I am the founder of a program called the Hope and Reason course. And that's where I help people to write and share their personal experiences of God. So, and then on top of that, I am a mom of 6. Yes, 1/2 children, and I've been married for 10 years to an awesome man.
Wow. 8 is enough, Elise. 8 is enough.
Right.
Oh.
It's okay. We've got it all figured out. We're going to just put everybody in a 36-foot RV and travel the country. So.
Yeah, you told me that you were going to RV and travel the country with all of the children homeschooled. And I'm thinking, I love you, but you crazy, girl. Crazy.
There's a little bit of that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what inspired you? You had talked about you're launching your full-time ministry website and platform. What inspired you to do that?
What inspired me to start the Hope and Reason program was initially a few years ago, it came to light that one of my children had been sexually abused. And even while my family was still reeling from that, my father-in-law entered the final stage of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and he needed full-time care. So we moved in to care for him. And so becoming a full-time caretaker and being a daily witness to what happens as someone's memory deteriorates, it became shocking to me, the similarities that I was seeing between someone who exhibited physical Alzheimer's and dementia and the symptoms that I was seeing in people who had forgotten who God was and what he had done for them. The symptoms were things like restlessness and anxiety, a lack of ability to self-care, not being able to raise up the next generation, depression, outbursts of anger, and really just a loss of identity. And so I was seeing this every day and began to discern that God was calling me pretty clearly to help people remember who he was and what he had done for them, to have really strong memories, to strengthen their faith and renew their hope. So that's what inspires me to do what I do.
What really is the Hope and Reason course? I love the name, and I know that, you know, it came out from a hard time with your family and you helping your father or your father-in-law with Alzheimer's. But really, what is it? What is it for? What is it to do?
Okay, so first, what it is, I'll explain the name. Hope and reason comes from the scripture, 1 Peter 3:15, which says, always be prepared to give the reason for the hope you have. So that's where hope and reason comes from. And what it is exactly that, preparing people, helping them remember why they have hope. So what you do is you are guided through writing down things that you have personally experienced of God, what he's done for you.
So going through the course, it's an online course, correct?
Yes, correct. It's all online.
Okay. So going through the course it guides me and helps like prompt my memory to remember what the Lord's done in my life. Now, what comes about from doing this course?
Yeah, sure. So I think the personal benefits are getting a stronger faith and having your hope renewed. But one of the primary reasons why I made the course was so that you could write down your stories in such a way that you could share them with others in a way that made sense to them. It's very easy to get on rabbit trails with our stories, or to be too scared to share your story, or to not know how to summarize what God has done. Or a very common thing has been, how do I share the hard parts of my story that involve other people in a wise way? So what I did was I created a way to coach you through those things in a very simple step-by-step, where you would just write down, as if you were writing an email, a response to one question at a time. So then you get this beautiful story written out that I have guided you through step by step, that you're prepared and you can share with anyone else. You have 2 PDF sizes that's a regular like print out at home, 8.5 by 11, that you can just print out and share as many copies of your story as you want. Or there is a 6 by 9 journal size that you can actually get a physical hardcover copy, and you can pass out those copies of your stories to your family members, to your friends, to the people in your church. So they will not only know that you believe in God, but they will understand why you have hope in him.
Now, who is this for? Because I'm I'm decently tech savvy, so I can do anything I want to do on the internet. But I would have loved to have known my mother's stories and my mother's experiences with the Lord. And, you know, she's passed, so I won't get to do that. But what if we wanted to do it with an elderly person? Is it easy enough that an elderly person could do it, or that we could coach someone? How does that go about?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm actually not that tech savvy myself. Even things that I've done times before can throw me off a little bit. So I specifically designed the course to be very simple and straightforward. There is one field box, like an email, like where you would type an email, that you write your story into and you click save. As the user, that is all you have to do. Now, you also have the option, again, just like with an email, to click this little button that says Add Media, so you can put your personal pictures in with your story if you want, because I know for some experiences, there are some pictures that really help bring to life what happened there, or that significant moment. So basically, if you can type an email or guide someone else who is elderly or maybe intimidated by that through typing an email and click save, then you can record and have a saved copy of your story. So I have some ladies in their 80s and their 60s doing this, and so far, everybody's been able to handle the technical side just fine.
So is there a way to do it in a group setting, or as a small group, or a church group, or something of that nature?
Yes, absolutely. Just like if you've done a Bible study with a small group of women, you could do this too. There is a leader guide within the course that very simply guides you through that. But very similar. There are videos, there is audio, and then there are 3 or 4, it's not homework, but if you've done Bible study, then that make sense, 3 or 4 things at home that you do in your personal time with God. And then you could bring that back to the group and share each week. And that's really ideal, because I think that God's design for us as a faith community is to remember and to share with one another what he's done for us in our history. We see that with the Israelites through all of the feasts, and even as a part of their weekly Sabbath. Part of what they did was recall where God had brought them from, what he had brought them through. So their children grew up knowing what God did for them. So doing this in community, practicing this in community is extremely important. And it helps us to understand kind of how God may have some of our roles and what he's assigned us to do here on earth connected. Because once you start understanding what God has brought someone else through, I think you may be surprised at how much you have in common with people, or ways that you may complement each other in serving. So yes, groups is ideal.
That's great. You know what? I am totally going to do a small group with this. So, well, I am very excited about this. I for one, have a hard time remembering what the Lord has done for me, and not because he hasn't, but because he has done so much. And so for me to really focus and be able to write out very focused what he has done, that is a great gift. And I love this. I think it is a beautiful legacy builder. I think it is something that children will need from their parents and from their grandparents, just to know where they come from and what they have been through. And I love it. I love it. I love it.
For sure. You know, I think that a lot of people can see that the stories that the next generation is consuming on a daily basis, that has a really powerful impact on what they believe is true, on how they feel, on how they think, on how they interact with each other, on what they understand and value. And so if we can add these stories in, if we can make these available to them of what God has done for us, I think that is going to have more impact than anyone realizes. People tend to not value their own stories. They tend to think that their story might not make that big of an impact. But I guarantee you, if I asked you, then you would be able to tell me of someone's shared testimony with you that had a profound impact on your life. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if someone wanted to do the Hope and Reason course, or if they even wanted to connect with you about coming out to explain the Hope and Reason course to a larger group, or have you come speak to a women's group, how would they go about finding you?
So it's really simple. Go to hopeandreasoncourse.com, and then there is a Connect tab right there up in the top menu, and that way you can contact me. So through hopeandreasoncourse.com, connect.
Okay. And can they follow you on social media?
Yes, absolutely. The place where I post most regularly is on Instagram, and you can find me at Elise Hurd, and that's on Instagram. And then I believe on Facebook it's just Elise Hurd. You should be able to find me pretty easily both places.
What does beauty mean to you?
Okay, so what does beauty mean to me? I have had a lot of time talking about and thinking about this topic because of my 6 children. 4 of them are girls, and they all have very different personalities. They have different body shapes. They have different features. And I have even one of the youngest ones, from the time she was 2, has been absolutely fascinated with fashion, beauty, anything like that. And so, oh yeah, she has put together some outfits that would be ridiculous on anyone else, but are adorable on her. So everything beauty related has been a big topic of conversation in my house. So when you ask me about beauty, that is an internal work of art, not an external one. Beauty to me is something that we cannot create because it has already been stamped into us by God. We are made in his image, and a big part of who he is beautiful and beauty. And so that's already on us. There's no age expiration date on it. There's no certain features that include you or exclude you from beauty, but rather it is something that we each get to cultivate within us. So I would say beauty, very simply put, is love. Anytime you see love embodied or reflected in someone, you're going to recognize that as beauty. regardless of their age or any other factors. And so beauty or beautiful is to be full of beauty. So I would say the more full of love of God you are, then the more beautiful you are. So that's what beauty means to me.
I agree with that 150%. I love that definition. The more full of God's love you are, the more beautiful you are. Absolutely. Love that. Love it. Okay, last question. If you had advice to give to a young lady, which you have 4, so I'm sure you have given much advice to your young ladies and younger sisters and my daughters, I hope. What would that be? Just one simple advice to them. What would it be?
I'll tell it to you through a story. There's a guy that I like to watch his YouTube videos online. His name's Stephen Furtick. And in one of his videos, he cares about his health and his fitness, and so he has a personal trainer. And his personal trainer said to him something that stuck with me. He said, you can't out-train your diet. And so if I was giving advice to a younger woman about her beauty or about her life, I would say the same thing, and I'll expand on it. But you can't out-train your diet. You can't do things on the outside that will make up for what you're regularly putting inside of you. And so I would say consider what your daily visual diet is. We're in such a visual culture with our phones and with screens and everything. I would say, what are you regularly taking in? Because that's either going to bring light into you or darkness. That's either going to bring beauty into you or ugliness into you. And so be very mindful and intentional about what your daily visual diet is, because no matter what you do on the outside, if you've got darkness and ugliness going in, it's going to come out.
So now we come to the fun part of you get to ask me a question. And so I don't know what the question is, but I am ready and game. So what would you like to know, Elise?
I would like to know, for you to share for me and for those listening, what is one of the ways that you regularly keep getting filled up with beauty inside of you? Like, what is something that you do to maintain beauty in you and to not let that ugliness that we all have take over? So what's one way that you do that you cultivate beauty in yourself?
Probably the main way that I cultivate beauty and I get filled up is through listening to worship music. I am a music girl to the core. I love worship music. And another way, I'm going to give you 2, and they usually go hand in hand. If I'm listening to worship music and I really engage in worship music, I cry. And for me, that is a softening. That is a clearing out of, and that is a filling up of. So a lot of people equivalent crying to weakness or even pain and hurt, and that's not necessarily true. Sometimes tears can come in a place of beauty and in a place of joy and in a place of intimacy. And so for me, that is very much a truth and is key. So I think if women gave themselves permission to cry more and not in an over emotional traumatic way, like where someone has pushed you to the point that you're crying, but that you are able to release and come before the Lord and let things go in that manner, I feel like people would be a whole lot healthier and also a whole lot happier, because used to the only time I would cry is if you made me angry enough that I would cry because I was overly frustrated. Now, anytime that I feel like I'm very intimate and close to the Lord, I cry every time. And so for me, I think women in general, I believe that that is such a freeing experience to be okay with tears and to be okay with crying and to be okay with being that soft.
Yeah, I totally agree, 100%.
Okay, Elise, thank you so much for joining us. I am looking forward to doing the Hope and Reason course. I look forward to it. And again, if you are interested in sharing your story about how the Lord has changed your life, what he has done for you, or recording it with your grandmother or an elderly person, or even doing it as a group, connect with Elise at hopeandreason.com. And don't forget to follow Your Makeup Expert on Facebook and Instagram. And go on over to the website and check out all of our YME beauties and see how you can continue to give back to our community and cultivate beauty from the inside out.